climate action tracker has said that there has been a 3-year standstill in global warming projections with no improvement since 2021. An absolutely startling report. In fact, based on the aggregate effect of current climate policies, the world is on a path toward 2.7 degrees Celsius of warming. This is what the report has said. In fact, CAT said that 2024 has been marked by minimal overall progress on the global warming climate crisis. CAT's annual climate report said while Donald Trump's election with impact projected temperature levels due to expected rollbacks of climate change policies, it's uncertain to what extent. But what's absolutely shocking is that there's been no improvement in terms of the global warming levels since 2021. Joining me on the show this morning, Seth Warren Rose, founding director of ENEREF Institute. Thanks very much, Mr. Rose, for being with us. Absolutely startling report there. And my first question to you, there has been this understanding that those who are least responsible for global warming, those who are least responsible for climate change, are the worst affected. And that's something that we've seen only exacerbate perhaps in the past 2 years or so.
That's absolutely right. And it looks like that trend is going to continue, especially with the technologies of artificial intelligence being developed in the United States. Speaking specifically to the issue of, the global temperatures reaching into the 2.7, I think 2.8 is what's now projected. It's not that we're doing a poor job in developing renewables. Overall, if you look at, Portugal, for example, has done a fantastic job. So the problem is that we're continually using more energy every year than the energy use is outpacing the renewable energy production. So that's a basic problem that we have to resolve. And that could easily be resolved with energy efficiency, which is something that we don't prioritize because there's no money in it. There's a lot more money in developing solar and wind and nuclear. But the costs involved in selling a more energy efficient air conditioner, it just doesn't. That's part of the problem, is that energy efficiency is not prioritized.
That's an interesting point you're making. And of course, what you said at the very outset as well, there's a great deal of inequity perhaps that marks our climate policies. But looking at the geopolitical reality, 2024 is perhaps the biggest election year globally. New governments are rising. The geopolitical reality is changing with new leaders, of course, taking over. Donald Trump's election, of course, we saw he spoke of the climate agreement there as well. How do you see all of this impacting, the world strategy vis-a-vis climate change?
I'm not optimistic. The fact that we have in the United States, speaking from that perspective, the most powerful and largest energy user per capita, per person, we don't have a cabinet position that speaks directly to climate change, and yet we have other cabinet positions in energy and defense and that sort of thing. If you look at the cost in energy of things like the Department of Defense in the U.S., the U.S.'s military represents nearly 1% of all energy use globally. So, and then if you look at what's going on around the world, look at the war between Ukraine and the Soviet Union. The carbon emissions of that war, people don't think about it from that perspective. It's a terrible human cost, but there's also a cost in the carbon emissions. And Mumbai, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, if you compare the carbon emissions of the entire city of Mumbai to the war, the entire city of Mumbai uses about 25% of the carbon emissions of the war between Ukraine and the Soviet Union. So we want to solve this problem. We have to solve global problems, which have been going on for as long as humans have been on this planet. We need to stop war. War is a huge cost. And think of all the people that are fighting around the world and all of these conflicts. If we were using that energy and that money and that ingenuity and the technology to solve climate change instead of grabbing territory, maybe we could resolve it. But I'm not optimistic, and it doesn't seem like we're moving in that direction.
Absolutely shocking there, in fact, that analogy you made there also, and the environmental cost of war. I think that's something that we must look at. Thanks very much, Mr. Rose, for joining us with your perspective there. Absolutely shocking there. No improvement whatsoever as far as global warming action is concerned.